everyone. Welcome to this episode of Entrepreneur Showcase Series, brought to you by Patranya Media LLC and Parkway Media Partners. I'm your host, Patranya Media, and our guest today is a very fabulous friend of mine. Her name is Ruth Furman. She's the founder and principal of Image Words Communications. Ruth, such a pleasure to have you in studio today with me.
I am super excited and grateful.
It's so great to see you. And Ruth, when it comes to PR, marketing in Las Vegas, Ruth is like one of the first names that popped up in people's minds. And that's why I think it's so great to have her here to talk about being an entrepreneur in this space. Because Ruth, you're really the queen of PR here in this town.
That's very kind.
I love it. I love what you do and how much you care about your clients. I think that's what makes it stand out. But we want to hear your story because a lot of people know you, but they may not know kind of where you've come from to get to where you are today. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about because I think it sheds the light on why you care so much, especially about the stories of your clients and how it's reflected here in Las Vegas. So tell us, Image Words Communications, you started this company over how many years ago now?
As of today, 21 years. It's my
21 years.
2022
wow. Yeah.
Marked my official 21st business birthday.
Wow.
So I'm adulting at work.
That is awesome. You've been in it for a long time, and you actually work in corporate communications before you started your own business. Is that correct?
I did. Mm-hmm. I worked in corporate public relations and communications, and prior to that, I was a working journalist.
So you did newspaper for a while, right? Is that what your background was?
Newspaper, magazine, and a tiny bit of broadcast in college.
Very cool. So tell me about this. Obviously, what do you love about this field? I mean, obviously, you say you love working with people. What is it about PR marketing that's kind of been your niche?
It's such a joy for me to have my own business in the PR and marketing space. And I'm glad you said PR and marketing because I really think it's all very intertwined. I do a lot of brand layering in my business where I'm combining brands and crafting stories with multiple brands and experts and characters and all of that. So I think what I like most about my business as Image Words Communications, both in the work I do locally, regionally, and nationally for clients and brands, is that I'm sharing really compelling stories. And a large percentage of these stories are stories that will really help people in some ways. Not just promoting a brand or a big company, but truly helping the reader or the viewer make their lives better.
Yeah. And, people have really come to you, Ruth, as a person who knows a lot of people in this town, right? And I think that's kind of been your brand, is that you're a connector. You're not just a PR marketing expert. You're also a people's connector. And I think that's really important in this field, right?
I think it's important. I think it makes me valuable. And it's also something that really brings me a lot of joy in my day-to-day work. I'm very candid about the fact that the public relations business, especially those of us who do a lot of work in media relations, helping working journalists day to day, it is extremely stressful. There are a lot of last minute deadlines. Right. You have your days planned in a certain way, and things change based upon the news of the day or the pressure our media contacts are under. So I do get so much joy in connecting people and in helping, create great stories. It really just makes me so happy when I'm able to really make a difference through my work and also to promote my clients in a way that I feel no one else really could.
Yeah. No, it's great. And you've been part of this community for so long. I remember when I was at Channel 8 at the time, right? I was doing weekend news and you brought tons of clients through the door and got me to interview them. And now I get to kind of work with you as colleagues in a way. And you've been wonderful in terms of, referring different people to me, do media training and things like that. So I know that you're a people connector, really. But, especially here in Las Vegas, talk to us about that importance of knowing people, making connections, because that's what makes this community unique. Right?
It really is. I call it my brand promise, actually. And I was actually just talking to a vendor of mine this morning about the importance and the the actually pressure I put on myself when I am making connections. You may be a better fit for a certain client than someone else.
Right.
And then another client, based upon exactly what they need, might be a good fit for a different vendor. So I really put a lot into my heart when I am connecting people, and the same goes with my media contacts for a story. It's not only about me. It's actually not about me and my business that much. It's more about what's going to make a better story, because that is going to have the reporter come back to me over and over again. Okay, Jane Doe may pay me more and maybe a client that I really want to get for. However, John Smith might be a better fit for this particular story.
Yeah.
And so that's something that that's I think another thing that sets me apart, Patranya, to your earlier question, is that I'm constantly thinking about what's going to make a better story, and I'm constantly working on being what I call a long-term thinker.
Yeah. And I think that's why, reporters, including myself at the time, love working with you, because we know that you're really thinking about what we need, as a storyteller and as a reporter and for our story, and not just kind of throwing people at us that won't make the story work, right? Because you've been there and you know what it's like.
Yes, I was actually talking to a freelance writer that I'm collaborating with on a new client this morning about some concerns that we have with a new client of mine as far as how the story needs to be shaped and how the story needs to be told versus the client's expectations and the way the client shares his story. And after this conversation, I've decided this client really does need some additional media training before he is put in front of a journalist.
Yeah.
So I'm very, it's important to me that I help my clients with the tools that they need to get their story told in the best possible light.
And you know what I love? When we were on a panel together not too long ago talking about, tips about, connecting with the media from a PR marketing standpoint. And I love the word you use, and I can't recall now how you grab on to the media bait. What's that term that you use?
I use the term newsjacking.
Newsjacketing.
And
I love that. Explain this term, newsjacketing, to me.
Well, I was a journalism major at the Indiana University School of Journalism in Bloomington, Indiana.
Right. You spoke about this at the iHeartRadio. That was the panel that we were at, right?
Yeah,
and we have a picture from that.
Picture.
Yes. And this is when
Newsjacking.
you brought up that term. So talk to us about that.
Well, and I it's something that I've honed over the years based on something I learned from this amazing college professor of mine, Rolf Holtzinger at the Ernie Pyle Hall, Indiana University School of Journalism. So Professor Holtzinger, at the time it was really annoying and taxing as a college student, but he made us read the Wall Street Journal What's News section so that we always knew what was going on in the news.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm always scanning the news so that I kind of know what's going on in the news and that I am ready. I know I have healthcare clients. I know that media might be reaching out to me about a cold medicine shortage.
Right.
So
what's the news right now?
What's the news right now, locally, regionally, and nationally?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can, through using a client who's an expert or a character, a friend of mine, I can help localize a national story. And sometimes I also like to say that big gets small and small gets big.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can make a local story go national, especially this time of year. We're filming this during the holiday season.
Right.
And as I mentioned to you when I arrived this morning for the taping, I like to make noise when everyone else is quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how you get attention, right?
That's how I get attention from my clients.
Right.
And that's also how I build brands.
Yeah, and you've been so great at doing that. And, in this town, Las Vegas, so many different PR agencies, marketing firms, so many people working for different people, which is great. I mean, and you've been kind of the lead supporter, people connect, working with each other, especially female-owned businesses, which has been really amazing. So talk to us about that. Being in that world, why is it so important for all of us to kind of connect and support each other, despite we do pretty much the same thing?
You know, we definitely do. And thank you for asking that question, because I was talking to two different friends of mine, one in marketing and one in PR, about my no poaching policy regarding being really being in integrity always in the work that I do. Yeah. And I know that I sometimes miss opportunities if I hear that a group or a brand or an individual is working with a certain agency. I pause and I ask some questions before I engage. And also, I love, one of my favorite things to do is to pass media opportunities along to my competitors.
You don't hear that a lot.
It's something that I love doing. Yeah. So I always and it's fun for me. It's fun for me and it's joyful for me. And I don't necessarily see a return immediately, but like, let's say I have an agency, a friend in Reno who represents a nonprofit. I know that, and if I get a media ask and it's something that I don't have a client or a collaborator for, I am able to help them. And this is something that I often do for no charge. I did change my business model in 2022 to a project pricing model. So it is something now that I am set up to be compensated for. And you mentioned women-owned businesses. I get kind of a little emotional when I think about it, because especially during pandemic, many, and during shutdown specifically, many women-owned businesses that I know nationwide and here in Las Vegas were really, really struggling. Yeah. And I have the platform through my work with media to really help them in a meaningful way. And one of them that I helped because a friend asked me to help this individual in the education space during shutdown is now thriving.
Wow. That must be a good feeling.
It is. It makes me so happy. And it's so rewarding to me, and it really gives me a lot of, I guess, faith and hope. Because there's so many unknowns and there's so many uncertainties as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we're filming this at the end of December, Patranya, and I don't know exactly what my Q1 is going to look like. I have, you know, one of my clients is on hiatus, and I don't know when they're coming back, and so I think that.
But what keeps you going? I mean, I think that you have to think of it that way, because how else are you going to do this kind of business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I really, I'm kind of a walking hashtag. So I came up with a mantra for myself, actually for the second half of 22, because had a couple things kind of go haywire the first half. But my mantra for the second half of 2022 was curate joy.
I love that.
It sounds really cheesy, but I do it. I do it every day.
And not just for your work, but like your life in general, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I love to, I have this term I call found time. So if something gets canceled, as you know, in our business.
Right, it happens.
There are a lot of uncertainties and things will get canceled. You'll have a certain plan. So if something gets canceled, I curate joy. I'll do something I wasn't planning on doing. Yeah. And it might be something completely non-work related. So.
And you know what? You really get out, like you say, you're a hashtag queen, because that's part of social media. You know, you've really kind of come into this game. And you're the perfect person to talk about how this business has changed. I mean, you started, over 20 years ago now with your firm to where it is now. Where do you see it has changed the most? And is it for the good? I mean, obviously, social media is a big part of that, right?
Social media is a big part of it. And I'm glad you asked that question, because something that I have learned is that I really, to have my clients be long-term clients, I really need to have the conversations with them about what they need from a vendor. Do they want all of the services under one roof? Yeah. Are they willing to work with me and my collaborating agencies on different needs? Because if they just want some quick hit PR, I can do that. They just might not get the results that they want. And it's such a cliche, but I am always managing expectations. And I'm always explaining the nature of the news business specifically. I have a project client who had a certain budget and wanted a certain type of coverage. And I said, this is what the media is covering right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we shoot some social media videos. I have a collaborator that can help you do that. Maybe you do like an entrepreneur showcase series so that you do have total control how you put their message out there.
Right, right.
So I talk about what I can do, what I can do through my collaborators, and I think that's one way going forward, in the next phase of my business, now that I'm officially adulting, that's one way that I'm going to have more long-term clients.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point, because I've heard from other people who've maybe worked with PR companies or marketing companies that have not been successful, and they say that they have not been accountable. They promise something and they don't deliver. And obviously you said manage expectations, and I think that's key, because if you don't care as much of a client as you do, the results aren't going to be what they want, right?
That's true. And I have another, it's not really even a hashtag. It's something I learned from a former client. He sold his business. He didn't fire me. He sold his business. But I definitely have lost clients.
Yeah.
But I remember he had an event, and it was a retail client in the beauty business, and he had an event. It was extremely short notice, and he wanted me to get a ridiculous amount of coverage. It was also like on a holiday.
Right.
The odds were stacked against me.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation, and he said, don't tell me what you can't do. His name is Doug. He's still around. Don't, in a different business. Don't tell me what you can do. Tell me what you can't. No, don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do.
Huh.
And that really resonated with me, Patranya. So now I tell all of my vendors.
You're honest about it.
I'm honest. And but I tell all my vendors and people that help me and collaborate with me, results are sexy, excuses are tacky. So, sorry, your event didn't get covered. Here's what we are doing. So I always have like tricks up my sleeve to activate when life happens, as it does.
And, I know there are people, coming in this world, especially in this town in Las Vegas, so many people, up and start people who are entry level, right? PR marketing, working for all these different firms, maybe working for casinos, hotel properties, but they eventually maybe have a dream of owning their own PR marketing agency, something like Image Words Communications. What's some of your advice for people to think about right now as they're thinking about if they want to start their own business? What's your advice as now a seasoned adulting entrepreneur?
Seasoned and adulting. I've had the privilege to support many young people in the business.
Yes, I do know that.
And also some journalist friends who have switched to PR.
Yeah, we've had many of those as well.
Think it's a certain way, it isn't. But as far as my advice to young people, and when I do kind of coach college students, and I know that you do some you're a guest instructor.
Yeah.
So my advice is to look past the headlines to what the day-to-day work is and figure out what makes you excited to go to work and what things that you don't excel in, so that you can really put yourself in the best situation. If you're entry level, you're going to be doing, you're going to be building media lists, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. So just be really, really patient and to really get your hands dirty and do it all. And then figure out, what you're good at. I do have my husband's cousin's daughter is such a rock star. I'm so proud of her. She's in college in Florida right now. And when she was in town, it actually was Channel 8. I had an in-studio on a weekend. It was when Bianca was
the anchor.
Was the anchor. And she came with me. And she kind of saw what it looks like, and she actually sat down and had a conversation and just saw how everything works. And this was actually pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And now she's decided she really wants to focus more on integrated communications and is running her college's PR firm.
Wow.
So, it's really getting as much firsthand experience as you can.
And find a mentor, right? I think I've heard that a lot. And you've been a mentor to so many people, but I think people forget that it's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing to reach out to people who've done this before you and learn from them.
Yeah, I would agree. And then I think that the other thing about PR, I think that this is a myth, and I don't know if you would agree with me, with all of your experience on both sides of the table, Patranya. If you're, just because you like to write doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to excel at being a effective media relations person, because in my view, a very large percentage of what I do is sales. It's selling a story.
That's true. Yeah.
And you also have to be an absolutely incredible student of human behavior.
Yeah.
And you have to think not only in media relations specifically, not only about what's a good story, but you have to be thinking about the boss's boss
Right.
of the journalist you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's like you said, you bring up that whole sales, right? Like, and it's funny because I think sometimes the best PR people marketing were the best reporters, reporters who really hustle, right? Reporters who get the story and the scoop because they hustle to get what they need, whatever it takes. And I think that translates when you come into a different world, and now you have to hustle to get the client, to get this, the journalist to buy the story that your client is selling. So it's kind of that same concept. But like you said, it's that connecting with people. It's so important, and making that kind of emotional connection, right? Like, so that they understand what they're going to get out of this, especially if they want to be on TV or get media exposure.
I would agree. I would agree. And, a large percentage of the work that I do with journalists, whether it be broadcast or print, locally and nationally, is with providing sources for stories who are not necessarily currently paying clients. And that is something that I'm actually very proud of. And that's kind of one of the reasons that journalists do come back to me and do cover my clients. And it's not a quid pro quo. It's not you owe me. I have no expectations. Yeah. I just find that they know I will get them that mom of a child struggling with mental health issues to be interviewed about fentanyl.
Right.
And, even though they may interview someone else's psychiatrist client, one day they're going to come to me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people come and ask about this, and you might be a good person to talk about paid media and earned media. And a lot of people, maybe clients looking for PR marketing for the first time, they want to know more about that. Do you want to talk about that and kind of the importance of why a good PR person like you can really help to decipher between the two? And maybe there's a need for both. So talk to us about the differences and what clients can expect when it comes to that.
I am so glad you asked that question, Patranya. I am a huge fan of sponsored content, paid media, pay to play, whatever you want to call it.
It's out there.
It's out there, and it is brilliant. And I really feel a lot of the clients that I have worked with in the last handful of years since pandemic have had have had small budgets. However, going forward, when I do my proposals and when I meet with prospective clients, I really, really push sponsored content, interviews. And one of the reasons that I am such a fan of them is that you do have some agency and some control over the content and the angle.
Right.
Whereas with editorial, you do not have, you have very little control, although a public relations company like mine can help you put your best foot forward with the sponsored content, whether it be buying a pay-to-play on a local
interview segment.
Segment, 3 minutes. You're getting your narrative out there. You're supplying the digital assets. You have an idea of sort of what some of your talking points are going to be, especially with my healthcare clients, with my real estate clients. I highly recommend those because they usually have certain points they really want to get across. Yeah. But I really think it is a combination.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think both have a lot of value. And I think that any good PR firm, and I'm going to be very candid, I don't function like a typical ad agency. I have a razor thin markup with pay to play. So I'm barely compensated for my team's time on pay to plays. but I still highly recommend them as part of the overall marketing umbrella.
And I think people need to know more about this because sometimes they're confused. They don't know, like, is this something I need to be doing? Why am I paying for this? What's the payoff? And you're explaining it right there. It's a chance to tell your story in a way that's controlled, right? It's the way that your narrative gets to be put out there the way you want to, where as a random TV interview on a particular story, it may not work for you that way. But what's great is to have a resource like a PR agency to help kind of hone you. Even if it's control, there are ways that you can blow it out too. You're right, if you're not prepared. So preparation is key. So what are some of the ways that you prepare your clients so that they're most ready to go on camera? What are some of the tricks that you have for them that you can share with us here in this interview?
Okay, my biggest secret, brace yourself. I usually don't do it myself.
Oh. And I think I know where you're going to go from there.
Well, not necessarily. But I think that I've learned, and even though I was in journalism, and I have a lot of background in journalism, and I can give the basic tricks, especially if it's a fast turnaround. Hey, with TV, for example, or even with print, you're going to be on in 20 minutes. You've never done an interview before. I give them basic stuff.
Right.
But actually, now that I'm an adult, the 2023 version of my business, every new client, even if they're a project client, is going to have some sort of official media training beyond something I do myself. I kind of feel that when I do it myself, somehow some of the tips fall on deaf ears because the client might be a little distracted from other things they're working on with me. So I'm booking that, and it's not only you. I have a few different. I have different vendors I use for different things depending on what the client needs. Like you're a perfect fit for the client that we're collaborating with right now because of what she wants. So, it just depends sort of on what the client needs. But I do, for every client that's going to go on the news, they are having a call, not just a text or an email, but they're having a call with someone on my team or a third party where they're getting a feel for what they're going to be asked, and they're kind of prepped for some of the unexpected. Today, I have a client going on the news with her two boys. And we kind of talked a little bit about wardrobe. We talked about kind of what to expect. Sometimes I find that kids get frozen when they see cameras. So I or someone from my team will be going with her for the interview. So it's just, there is no magic answer. But for me, the magic answer is to have someone other than me collaborating on the media training.
And I think that's where, you've really kind of grown your company to be this collaborative agency. You work with so many people in this community to make this magic happen. And I'm proud to be, among those that, would collaborate on different projects together, and to be able to tell your story in this interview has been really an honor. And Ruth, if people want to find you, want to work with you, where can they find you?
I would say my website. I redid my website in the last couple of years through a local agency I collaborate with, Find the Agency. And my website is ruthfurman.com, RUTHFURMAN.com.
That's awesome.
And there's a contact form on there. There are a couple different ways to work with me. And I'm so incredibly grateful, not only for this opportunity, but to collaborate with you. And I'm really seeking and excited for more ways to collaborate with you, myself, and with my clients in the new year.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that as well. And Ruth, thank you so much for your time and joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for watching and listening this episode of Entrepreneur Showcase Series. And we'll see you next time.